All right, just gonna set aside my GoPro here, and I'm just actually gonna use my cell phone. Hopefully this works out. We'll see. All right, welcome. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna cover an Albert Pinkham Ryder masterpiece, and I'm hopeful we'll do it in about 40 to 45 minutes. So I'll make some adjustments here. I know the lighting and the camera work are not, we'll put it this way, it leaves a lot to be desired. Just getting myself set up here. We're going to recreate something that looks a little bit like this. We have my homemade 5x7 wood panel, and I've been waiting for some time to think of something to use this for. I was going to use it for a plein air painting. I thought I might get some interesting effects with this marbling. And basically the way I created this, cut down birch plywood and gessoed it, sanded it a couple times, gessoed it a couple times, and then put a real thin wash of yellow ochre and then a mixture of yellow ochre and sap green, let it dry. So this is dry paint. And I also kept some of the filings or the dust that came off of the sanding efforts with the gesso, and I sprinkled it in there so there's a nice texture. So we're gonna go ahead and try and get started. I have a palette here that's kind of has some leftover paint, some yellow ochre, some cad yellow, titanium white, burnt umber. Just added sap green, cad red, and then a messy pile here of ultramarine blue. I'm going to try and work this out with maybe 3 brushes. We'll see. We'll see how that works. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. You'll hear some laughter and stuff in the background. We just found out that there's going to be a traditional snow day. So with 2 15-year-old twins and a wife that works in the school system, it's kind of a big deal. Been an interesting and challenging year here in 2022 for a lot of reasons. So I'm going to pull some burnt umber over and then some sap green over. And like I would in any painting, I'm going to work the shadow patterns first. So I'm going to try and, first things first, the halfway line here is right about there. This painting is broken up into almost perfect thirds. So I'm going to darken this area here, which will be the C. Some of the darker spots are going to be around the edges here where the troughs of the waves hide the light coming off of the moon. There's some darker spots up in the sky, so, and off to the edges here. And I'll try and read a little bit about this artist. One of the things that jumps out, he painted, at the turn of the century, like a lot of the artists that I'm drawn to did. This might have been this painting that I'm copying here might have been painted, I think, in 1888, and he was part of the tonalist movement. So this is gonna have a lot of the qualities that a tonalism style painting will have. There we go. And the moon will be, if that's the halfway point, the boat, the moon, it's going to be right around there. And I might move it, just to have a little fun, I might move it a little bit. Maybe obscure its view by the mast of the boat, we'll see. Alright. Now, I dip into this ultramarine blue, and I'm going to pull some of this blue over to this existing drier pile of lavender that I have, which I created mixing cad red and ultramarine blue. There is some purple or lavender in this painting, and I'm going to use it for sure in the foreground here to bring some of these elements within the sea forward a little bit. I'll also use it in the sky. And I know it's moving quite slowly right now, but this, I have a feeling, is going to come together quickly. I'm also going to use this smaller brush. I'm going to sketch out the actual small vessel here, the boat, which dips down. Let's see, the sail dips down. The main sail, right there. The hull of the boat doesn't actually come above the horizon. However, the two sailors that are on the boat do. And I imagine, imagine turn of the century, late 1800s, 1900s, being out in sea, trying to catch some fish or deliver a shipment or transport people, and you probably have to be very brave, I think, in order to kind of exist that way. Alright, so just the general shape, just sketching it in. We'll refine the shapes quite a bit as we go. I'm going to get some of this lavender up into the sky. And I apologize if I actually do have anybody viewing this initially. Oftentimes people will view it after it's recorded on YouTube. I'm not the best at responding to messages, so if you happen to type something in and I don't respond right away, don't take it personally. Okay. I get more of that blue, and we're going to work that in. And there's quite a bit of green too in this ocean. Just going to make a mess of it. Going to darken that area and cool it off where the actual open space would be in the hole. Alright, and then we'll continue to selectively darken areas in the sky, and that'll help us create the illusion of luminosity. There we go, and there's a kind of rhythm here in this painting where the waves are kind of, feel like they're encircling the boat a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is take some paper towel and wipe some of that paint off. We want to make sure that we don't lose all of the textures that we can leverage to create the illusion of light bouncing off of waves. And then particularly closer to the horizon here. Ryder, and a lot of his paintings I read, he would spend as long as 10 years or more working on certain paintings, and he would experiment with his oil paints, his oil paintings, and include, wax, and as a result of that, a lot of his paintings actually, he used thick paints piled on top of thick paints. It would take, it's reported to have taken maybe decades in some instances for some of his paintings to dry, even some being slightly wet after 100 years. And I'm not going to take any of those approaches here. My goal is to finish this up and just get a similar feel in about 40 minutes to an hour. And what I found is, having done a couple hundred paintings over the past 2 years, and about maybe 20% of them being studies like this one, it helped me solve problems that I come upon with my own original paintings. They also help inform those paintings as well. All right, so I'm gonna take some yellow ochre. I'm gonna stop talking for a minute here. Yellow ochre and some white. And I'm gonna start building in some of the suggestion of some of the lighter areas here. My moon is gonna be right about here. Our moon. And I'll make that much more symmetrical and circular. I just want to get some textures in here. Okay. And we'll get, some of that in the water. I'm going to add some of this cad yellow that I've been just dying to use. I keep putting it on my palette and I just don't use it. Almost like dry brushing it in. I'm going to wipe a lot of this off. And it's funny, my wife and my daughter are watching Felicity from the 1990s. And my wife and I have been watching Yellowstone. All right, I'm going to put in some indication of this moon here. And we just got in from soccer practice. All right. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to finish this up in time to maybe watch an episode of Yellowstone. We're always a little behind the times. I know most people probably are on the current season. We are on season 3. It's our first time through. What an incredible show, though. Okay. And we're going to get some of this white down here. Soften some of the lines in the moon. And we'll just keep working our way through this way. I am doing this, I'm taking this approach mainly because he texturized the sky, and I don't have the luxury of having decades to finish this. I'm just doing a study that's intended to help viewers like you, if you're interested in doing this sort of thing, and help me by, kind of informing my future painting endeavors. some of this around here, and some of it around here. Good. All right. So we kind of have an interesting thing going there. Now I have to work on some of the shapes, but I like what I'm seeing. And in order to do that, I'm actually gonna use a Q-tip. Just to refine some of these shapes and also bring some texture into them as well. Continue to bring some textures in. And we'll do that not only in the ocean but also in the sky. And we're definitely going to bring some more of that lavender in around the edges of the sky there. And I'm not going to worry about fixing the shapes of the sailors in the boat too much yet, but what I am going to do is mix up nice dark kind of lavender color, burnt umber, cad red, just a little tiny bit of cad red, and ultramarine blue. And the boat itself is going to consist of some of the darkest shapes. And so will these people. And the sails will have some darker shades in there, as will that mast. But there'll also be some light bouncing around. So we're not going to overdo it. All right. And then this needs to come up to a little bit of a higher point. There we go. And this needs to be a little more rounded. There we go. And then this mast comes up like that and then like that. Okay. I think I got that angle pretty close to where it needs to be. Now there's a whole bunch of highlights missing. And there's a couple of things going on as it relates to where the boat meets the water that I'll need to fix, but that's okay. I'm going to get some of these darker. I'm going to get a little sap green in that pile off to the left. I'll start bringing some more green into this ocean. And the ocean is going to be a mix of greens and blues in the dark areas, and then a bunch of highlights. All right. Yeah, I kind of like it. Yeah, that's one of the things about these tiny canvases, these tiny surfaces. You can get through a painting real quick. You can fix mistakes real quick. It's kind of like the same way certain sports like soccer and hockey and basketball, you know, sometimes when you're training, there's a real advantage to shrinking the field. You get more touches in, more reps, spend less time correcting, you know, big errors that occur over long periods of time. It just moves quicker. All right. Darken some of the sides there. Pull some of this into the upper atmosphere. And continue to texturize. And roughly keep the same angles and patterns going, replicated. And these are thin coats of paint, one over the other, wet on wet. You know, I imagine he probably let his dry. Again, I don't have the luxury of time. Hit the pause button real quick, just to take a deep breath and yeah, maybe just confirm some of what I said. You know, Ryder was born in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which at the time, at the 19th century, was a whaling port. Yeah, so it said that he had an intimate connection with the ocean and port life. He ended up studying art in New York City in 1867 or so. He joined, I guess, an older brother that had developed a real good career in hospitality. I think he owned a restaurant or something like that. He had taken a couple of trips to Europe throughout his life, so there was some influence there, much like Innes and others from that era. He was influenced by the Barbizon school. He did study at the National Academy of Design, and he befriended J. Alden Ware. He studied at the Hague School, which is a Dutch influenced art school. And yeah, he was an interesting character. He was believed to be, at least historically, it was suggested that he was an introvert and a recluse, but there's been some corrections to a lot of, you know, that's been, I guess, debunked as kind of false history. Apparently he did have a network of friends. And it's said that he might be the most copied or most commonly forged American painter, maybe second to Ralph Blakelock, who was also a tonalist as well. And that's about all I know about him. He did a lot of allegorical work. He did some work that almost looks like icons that you would see in churches and seascapes. And this is him right here. That's a picture of him, a photograph from 1905. I think he lived to be 70, which is good for that era. It said that painters don't really reach their peak until their 80s, so I'm hoping at least I can make it that far. But in any event, that's probably more than you ever wanted to know. I'm going to get back to my study subject here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to, wiping off some paint with paper towel. And I'm just going to continue to work on this ocean. I want to continue to create texture. You know, they're in rough waters. There's water splashing all over. You know, there's going to be light picked up And just like a sky plane, an ocean plane, off in the distance, any of the striations and the textures are going to tend to get flatter, closer together, more horizontal in nature. So my lines are going to try and suggest that. Okay. And then this sail here is going to have a little bit of a, you're going to see some of that cupping action where the wind actually fills it up. This sail, I am going to shift the angle a little bit and bring that part down a little bit. And I'm going to create some sort of indication of separation between the sail and the mast. I'll come through and make more adjustments as we go. And there's going to be a little bit of a rim on the hull. There we go. And we'll just keep working our way through here. Actually almost done. Again, one of the real nice things of working this small. You know, I'm going to reach the potential with what I can accomplish in one sitting, painting one on wet, trying to replicate this style pretty quickly. Can I do here? I don't want to jump too prematurely to add in highlights. I'm going to try and turn this a little more and enlarge it. I think that's probably pretty good. That's as good as I'm going to be able to get it. All right. Now, I'm going to take this small rigger brush. I'm going to blot it out real quick. I'm going to get more of this cad white going on this gold color we have here. And just drag it across. And a couple areas here. Just create the indication of some of that moonlight dancing off of the waves in the distance. And I'll have to go over it a couple times, that's fine. And then maybe it peeks through over here too. You know, the tip of that hull, maybe there's a wave that's rolling up against it just at a certain angle. And maybe, and I'll minimize that a little bit. That came out a little too thick. That's all right. And then maybe there's some more here. And sometimes, now that the paint on the brush is graying a little bit because I'm picking up some of the paint already, I'll just put little dappled light suggested, you know, even in some of the shadow areas. We're close. I'm not looking to replicate it exactly. I'm just looking to kind of see what might go into creating a similar feel. Let's see. So the name of this painting is with sloping mast and dipping prow. It was painted in the 1880s, and the original version is 12 by 12, so it was a square, much larger, and I converted it to a rectangle, much smaller. Break up some of those sections in a bit. And some of those sections too. And we'll create some indication maybe there's some clouds. The light bouncing off of it from the moon. That'll fix that sail. It's almost down to like a dry brush effect here. There we go. So when we add paint to the painting, we typically, with this style of painting, but also what I'm finding is with other styles of painting, you spend a lot of time wiping paint off too. And that's what we're going to do. Select areas. We're going to, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a toothpick, I'm going to break it in half, so now I have 4 ends, 2 thicker ends and 2 pinpoint thin ends. I'm going to start scraping away paint using this toothpick to expose some of the darker underpainting and also break up some of these solid white streaks. I'll do that in the foreground as well as in the background here. Yeah, we don't want those solid marks, and we want to create the indication that there might be some waves rolling in the background there. And I'm going to push some of that paint into where that mast is too, if it's a little too thick. And I'll just scrape around and make a mess here where it just looks a little too controlled. Now, I'm also going to do the same here in the sky, trying to honor the original, where he used these lines in the sky to kind of create what I feel is an illusion of atmosphere. Maybe there's and also probably strategically to move the eye around the painting. And just also maybe just to prevent it from just being boring. So I got some more work to do, but we're ever closer. I'm gonna push some of this up. I think some of the moon here will be obscured. Wow, some serious dialogue going on in Felicity. All right, now I'll break some of this up here. Kind of like what I'm going on here. I could quit right now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fix up some elements on this boat a little bit. Namely these sailors. And I might have a hard time getting this just right because of a couple of reasons. Ironically, because of the texture. And if that's the case, that's fine. I'm not gonna fret over the painting not being quite perfect. But yeah, I think I like it. I think I get the feeling that these sailors are kind of hanging off the edge here, trying to counterbalance the boat. I think I do need to warm up this sail and create a little bit there we go. And then I'm also gonna texturize this mainsail a little bit. We are almost done. I'm gonna get a little bit more green. And when I say green, in this case, it's gonna be a lighter green, an emerald green. Just a couple touches here and there. Oh, that's too light. There we go. And I'm gonna wipe some of that off. Break up some of those lines. I'll come through and put the final highlights in. And I'll build up some of the dark spots as well. And get some of that ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and don't want to lose all those dark areas in the water. And definitely don't worry, I'll fix that. Don't want to lose the rhythm. And the contrast. Alright, some more paper towel work. I'm going to put that, actually before I do paper towels, I'm going to do toothpick. Just to break up some of those heavier lines and also help accentuate some of the rhythm. Alright, cool. I don't want to overwork this. So what I'm going to do is come through and just put in some indications of, yeah, maybe some illusions of detail. And then something close to pure white here where the sun is, but I'll soften that. I mean where the moon is rather. And then a couple of little indications on the water. And don't worry, I'm going to wipe that away. And then that's got to be much more subtle. But we're going to scrape it away. That's what we're going to do. Just refine just a little bit. Take some of that paint off. It's just a little too much right there. And then we'll have it blend in a little bit. too harsh. All right, there we go. I think we're good. And then one more pass with the sharp end of the toothpick. Okay. I think that's it. I think for the most part we accomplished what it was we set out to do, which was to experiment and see if we can get a similar feel in this painting. Obviously not looking to achieve the same level of acumen or replicate it exactly the same. That would be near impossible. But I feel good about this. Yeah, I think it would be interesting. It'd be an interesting experiment to try and do something like this through direct observation, painting at night on a boat someplace. But yeah, I got one more thing I think I could do. There's maybe an opportunity to get an indication of some of the rigging kind of dangling down here like this. There we go. And then pull this out a little bit. There we go. And then I think maybe get some of that green in. And then pull this back a little. Okay. I think we're good. Appreciate you joining. Probably try and get another live painting session in tomorrow, sometime early in the morning before work. But thanks for joining me for the latest edition of the Study the Greats series, long-term series I'm doing, trying to explore how some of the great paintings might have been created, doing it my own way, wet on wet, alla prima, one session. This painting, like so many of the paintings from the era, turn of the century, 1900s thereabouts, were painted over long periods of times, multiple sittings in many cases, and I'm doing these in one sitting. In this case, just a little under an hour. And I appreciate you joining. Hope to see you next time. This was covering the selected work called With Sloping Mast and Dipping Prow from the late 1800s. The original is actually hung in the Smithsonian American Art Museum. And we're covering, in this case, the work of the late great Albert Pinkham Ryder, American painter. Thanks again for joining.